But let's talk about something reigniting, Ian.
So, as everyone was hoping for, and it finally happened, Spyro is getting its HD collection upscaled. Spyro Reignited. And it's going to, Activision's doing it. Activision did the Crash Bandicoot collection. The original 3 Spyro games will be on it. Spyro Year of the Dragon, and Spyro 2 would be Ripto's Rage, and then Spyro Year of the Dragon. The first three games were originally done by Insomniac, which is now done the Ratchet and Clank games. I believe they did Sunset Overdrive on the Xbox One. And much like the Crash Bandicoot series, the Crash Bandicoot HD collection, they're going to be rebuilding them from the ground up, but trying to keep all of the gameplay intact. They said they'll be doing some, slight redesigns on some of the enemies and things like that. And I'm actually kind of excited because I never really played the Spyro games when they came out. And this will be a cheap and easy way to kind of check them out and see what they're all about. I had always wanted to give them a shot, but by the time they had come out, I was already spending way too much money on the RPGs that were coming out for the PlayStation and stuff like that every week, so they just kept getting pushed to the side.
Sure. So Spyro's to me is always one of those series I never got into because it was bigger on PlayStation, like Ratchet and Clank. I just never got into it. But it's one of those series where if you had to associate it with like PlayStation, that era, you would do that. It would be on a PlayStation Classic Edition, I guess.
Sure.
Like if you went that route. It's cute. He's cute. He's a cute little guy, little purple dragon type guy. Yeah. What are the main gameplay mechanics that people liked at the time? Was the fact that it was 3D platform, but you can fly around and breathe
you
fire?
can fly around and it's more open and stuff like that. And there's you have to collect the eggs and that sort of thing.
Is it collectathon like all these are? These 3D platformers?
To be honest with you, I have no idea. I think the interesting question though is and we've had I actually had a few people ask is this worth it, or are we being taken for the money? And honestly, I think it probably is worth it, especially at
how much is this?
It's going to be $40, just like the Crash Bandicoot collection.
And it's going to be PlayStation 4 and Xbox One September 21st.
And with a collection like this, it's interesting to look at both the Crash Bandicoot one and the Spyro one. On one hand, I'd played all those first 3 Crash Bandicoot games, and I felt like it was definitely worth buying the remaster because they had done a really good job recreating those from the ground up, and it was a lot of fun to go back and revisit them all, and they looked great. And those games aren't exactly... they're not super expensive, but you're going to spend probably $20 at least on each one of those. At a convention or retail store, they've gotten popular, they've gotten more expensive. So that's $60. You're getting all 3 of them for $40 in one package. That looks nice.
And you're playing on your modern console.
Right.
Wouldn't this be... I'm surprised this wouldn't be announced for the Switch, maybe later on.
Possibly later on. It took them a while to announce the port of the Crash Bandicoot collection for the Switch.
It's weird because... from what I've been, just from being at PAX, it seems like everyone's jumping on board the Switch.
Oh yeah,
all the indie developers are. People are like, okay, this is going to be a runaway hit. We don't have to, we don't have to hedge our bets. At least on the indie side, I guess AAA developers still are like, well, we'll see. I guess for some reason, to some aspect, but so this falls in between because this is just a port of games that are 20 years old. So
it's not just a port though. They really are rebuilding it from.
Sure, but this isn't a AAA game.
No,
That's what I mean. Maybe port was not the proper term for that. It says yes, it's remastered. So they just weirdly canceled the Tomb Raider trilogy remastered edition. But it seems like wherever they can now, they're just going to start putting out these trilogies or collections of these 20-year-old games from like the PlayStation era. And why not put them back out in remastered form?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
I haven't played a lot of these games. I played a little bit of Tomb Raider. I had never played any Spyro in my life. So to me, that there could be an appeal. I'm like, oh, let's check it out. You said $40 for 3 full length games. Why not?
Well, and that's what appeals to me. And I think for a lot of people who are younger who may know of these characters but have never played them, this is a lot easier than going out and buying a PlayStation 1 or a PlayStation 2 and finding all those games and doing it. So, yes, I do think, especially with these games, there is definitely a need for them, or definitely a place for them to be updated, better cameras, better graphics, and easier accessibility.
Well, yeah, and plus, I mean, getting an original PlayStation, trying to connect it to an HDMI TV might be a little difficult, and then the disc scratching, load up times. It seems like the disc-based consoles are the worst to try to go back and play nowadays for a variety of reasons. It just seems like it's the biggest hassle. So there's going to be a set of games from any retro console that would probably, to me, make the most sense to either remaster or just come back in a collection like that. It would be some of these games on these CD-based consoles. Absolutely.
Sure.
Because 20 years from now, is there going to be any... it might be tougher to find an original PS1 that works still. It might.
Especially, I think, ones from like the PlayStation 1 and certainly anything that was... anything from, say, the PlayStation 1 or Saturn, anything from the early Polygon era.
Yeah.
The early Polygons...
Plus, those games are ugly as sin.
That's what I'm getting at. They had... There was charm, but it doesn't hold up in the same way that sprite-based graphics can hold up. Early Polygons were a true limit of the time, and they worked with what they had, but it's different than, you know, an 8x8 grid sort of constraint, or a 16x16 grid, or a color constraint. You can still work within that and make something, I think, that's more appealing to look at than a polygon constraint.
I had an argument, a friendly argument with an indie game developer, I believe. He actually tweeted at me about when will, I guess, the Polygon / N64 era be considered like the retro game aesthetic. And I said to him, I don't think if it ever probably will.
I don't think so either.
Just because, well, first of all, you haven't seen them. Like all these indie games come out, 99% of them look like 8 or 16-bit or a combination of them. Almost none of them look like polygonal 3D platformers did. But it seemed like at the time that was the best they could do, so they went with it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Versus they couldn't express everything they wanted to. You know, so if you saw a Crash Bandicoot, at the time you're probably like, yeah, that was cool, but I wish there was more detail on these characters. You know,
sure.
And so the remasters are like a logical step forward. When you see a 16-bit game, you don't need to see more detail. That's all. You know what I mean? That's what it is.
You could always want more detail. I guess I just felt like that the 2D art allowed for more expression, even in its limitations, than the polygonal art did in its early limitations.
Sure.
Is probably the best way for me to put it.
All right.
Well, so yeah. Anyways, you know, I'm glad it got announced. Everyone was clamoring for it since the Crash HD collection came out, and it was finally announced at PAX. So,
is there another? What do you think of the next big trilogy or quadrology?
Honestly, I would have guessed. Yeah, I would have said probably Tomb Raider, but Square Enix is just crazy, and obviously that.
Has there been a Ratchet and Clank one?
Yeah, there was a Ratchet and Clank. There was, you know, the Sly Cooper. They did a lot of those, I think, during the PS3 era.
Okay, so those are out there, and after that, you're pretty much done. I can't think. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm not sure that there was any other late era mascots that I can think of that need it to happen.
I always forget about good old Sly Cooper.
Yeah, never really played those either. Those look good though.